when you get too big, you kind of lose the sight of what a restaurant is. Restaurants, hospitality, it's food, it's service, it's cleanliness, it's everything. When you get too big, you kind of lose the sight of everything because all you focus now is how much money you're bringing into the
churn and burn. Welcome to Opportunity Knocks. I'm your host, Todd Paton. I got a special one today because my Sprinter is parked in front of, do I see Livello there? This is a restaurant that's been the talk of the town. Livello is owned by a friend of mine, Bruno, who is here with us today. I'm so glad to have you here, Bruno, man. This is just we've never done restaurants. This is, the first restaurant we've ever done. We've done 20 episodes. Mostly it's been CEOs, things like that. And I'm going to tell a quick story before I introduce you officially. But I went to Bruno's old restaurant, Tavolino, where he was the chef at. I didn't know him. And we started talking. This is probably 7 years ago maybe. We start talking, and he comes over. And he, first of all, I thought he owned the place. That's how much passion he has. And we started talking. It was small talk, and I don't know if you remember this, but I said, Bruno, I love. You asked me what my favorite dish was. I said, I love. My favorite is paella. I love it. Now I know paella takes a long time. You have to, and you told me, Bruno. You said, TP, let me know, man. I'll make you one time. Just give me a heads up. And I'm saying to myself, did he really just say that? Because that's no restaurant does that, And and then since then, him and I have become friends, and we have a connection with your wife and Nicole, and it's been awesome knowing you, man. And I'm so proud to see you open Livello. First off, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for obviously choosing us to be the first one on your podcast. This is amazing. This is a really cool setup. I love being a part of it. But yeah, we have a relationship that's been going for a few years now, and I just want to make sure that relationship keeps going.
Awesome, man. Mm-hmm. And I want to hear the story now, because listen, starting a restaurant, is this the first one you've owned? Because I know you were.
This is my first one. This is my baby.
Wow.
It's the story behind it is this. I always wanted to own a restaurant. My dream was always to have something that's small. You know what I mean? Like nothing that's huge, because when you get too big, you kind of lose the sight of what a restaurant is. Restaurants, hospitality, it's food, it's service, it's cleanliness, it's everything. When you get too big, you kind of lose the sight of everything because all you focus now it's how much money you're bringing into the place.
Churn and burn.
Right? Yeah, it's turn and burn.
Yeah.
For me, it's more about the service, the quality of the food, the personal contact that you have with your customers. Just like you made an example when I used to be at the other restaurant, you say, whenever you want a paella, just give me a heads up, and I'll make it for you. And that has not changed. Even from my customers here, Livello is the same way. I tell them, I say, if you don't find some on the menu, I call my kitchen an amusement park. If I have it, I'm gonna make it. And people walk in and they're like, "Can I have a burger in the middle of the dinner rush?" No problem. Tell me where you want a burger, and I'll make it for you. Because those are the marks that you leave on people. Kind of like you say, 7 years ago, I told you that I would make you a paella. The same way here, I had a kid came in. He's like, "I really don't want to eat anything Italian. I want a burger." I said, "I'll make you a burger." And the kid is like, "This is probably the best burger I ever had."
I want you to go back from the beginning. So obviously a passion for service, because what impressed me most with when you were at Tavolino is when I thought you owned it, because for somebody to do that works for a company, it just goes to show how much passion you have and the character you have of commitment you have to working at a company. But give me your backstory. How'd you get into the restaurant business? And
Well, originally I was supposed to go to school to be my mom and my dad wanted me to do something completely different. They wanted me to be like an engineer or a lawyer. Obviously, your parents always want you to do what you never do. Exactly. It's like it's always go reverse.
Right.
I started it. From a very young age, my family always dealt with food. Either from my mom's side of the family, I was having a bar that served food. Because I'm from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, so it's very different. And we had a small little bar that made food on the weekend for people to eat and have a good time. So I always been around food. And
now, were you born in Brazil?
I was born in Rio. Yeah, I was born in Rio de Janeiro. Yes.
So both your parents are from
Brazil.
Born.
Yes. My mom's Sicilian and Brazilian, and my dad's Brazilian. So I have the Italian side from my mom's side of the family. So we always dealt with food. Like Sunday at our house was a very big deal. Making sauce or gravy, whatever people call it these days. I call it gravy because for us, gravy, you know what I mean, was the red sauce. It was never the brown stuff that you put on mashed potatoes. So we made gravy with my grandfather. My grandfather never spoke to us in Portuguese or anything. It was always Italian from a young age.
This is your mom's father?
My mom's father, yeah.
Sicilian.
Sicilian, yeah. And making meatballs and arancinis and, the rice balls.
And I could tell just by how you talk. You looked up to your grandfather.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
My grandpa is like a big inspiration when it came to cooking because the man knew how to cook. And then my mom and my aunts and everybody followed the same footsteps. My aunt worked in food service in Brazil. And then when I moved here, surprisingly or not, like kind of like stirred that way because in high school I started working in like the food court at the mall. You know what I mean? Like that was like my gig in high school. In
Coral Springs? That's in South Florida?
In Boca.
Okay.
I worked at a town center mall. I made cheesesteak sandwiches at a town center mall when I was like 15.
That was your first job officially in
the service industry.
But you were passionate about that. You liked it. You said, this is going to be my...
It wasn't to be in a restaurant industry, you have to not only love the service industry, the passion needs to be there, but there's an adrenaline involved in it. Serving people and
meeting deadlines and like it's ordering food. I mean, forget about just the rush of it, but also the beforehand. I can't imagine how to
the preparation. You know what I mean? The we call it the mise en place. You have to make sure that everything's done. So when you're trying to serve 100 people, I ran out of chicken, and I only served 20 people. You have to make sure that you do your homework really well when it comes to that. And I kind of fell in love with it. And then by the time I was like 17, I worked for my mentor. His name is Jack Flagg. Amazing man. He still owns restaurant to this day in Connecticut. He's actually my client. He comes here to eat because he travels back and forth from Florida to Connecticut, Connecticut to Florida. And he comes here with his family, his wife and his brother and everybody. And kind of like,
and that was when you were 17?
From when I was 17.
And what restaurant did Jack own?
Jack owned a restaurant called Penne Grill. We did a lot of catering. It was like an Italian fusion, kind of like what I have. But back then, we're talking about here 1999, 2001.
And how'd you meet Jack?
I just knocked on the door. I said I needed a job. And he hired me. And when I first started working with Jack, I was basically like the do boy in the kitchen. Go do this, go do that, go clean potatoes, or go peel onions, go wash dishes. And this was after high school. So I go to high school, you know what I mean? Like, to 2 o'clock, 2:30, ride my bike, which was probably like 3 or 4 miles away, and work to about 10 o'clock and then go home and then, get excited for the next day.
Let's go ahead.
And then by the time I was 18, I was already cooking with Jack. He's like, come on, now we're going to cook together. And then from then on, I moved on to other restaurants and worked various restaurants. Like there's a restaurant that's still open. That it was the first restaurant that I actually opened as a chef. It's on Atlantic Avenue in Delray. It's called Sazio.
Sazio, yes, Italian restaurant.
Italian restaurant, still there to this day.
There.
Yeah, still there.
And you were the chef of that?
I was the first chef. I worked there for about 3 years. Yeah, I was the first chef of the restaurant, and I moved on to other things.
That is awesome. So, this podcast, Bruno, is called Opportunity Knocks. And my goal for this is to motivate and inspire entrepreneurs.
Of course.
And I do that by finding successful people like yourself and, that have are CEOs, have started a business. And I ask them, through our conversation, there's usually an opportunity that knocks on people's door and they don't even realize it. Yours was you knocking on Jack's door. And you said that was an opportunity that 25 years later, you still have a relationship. He's coming to your restaurant.
Absolutely.
How cool.
Yeah, he comes in. We talk very often. If he does, look, that's how good of a relationship me and him have is that if he doesn't like something, he tells me. And I take it. Do you know why? Because the best thing is that when somebody gives you a constructive criticism that have a higher experience than you, work with them. Don't go against them.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
Yes. Listen, it's like surrounding yourself with smart people.
Yeah.
Do it. Yeah. Learn from it. I used to tell Jack that I was the sponge in the kitchen. Do you know why? Because observe everything. Just give it to me. I'm gonna observe everything, and I'm gonna learn from it.
He loved that, I'm sure.
And to this day,
still, we don't ever stop learning.
With my staff, I tell them all the time. I say, if there's something that you guys think that I could do better, I'm here.
Love that, man.
I'm here to learn.
You're part of the team. You're just another team member, and that's a really, really good point. And it's funny because look, I'm going to be 50 this year, and I'm looking at it like the reason I'm doing this podcast, a big reason is to learn. Little things that I've learned from. I had Michael Udine, the mayor, on, and he talked about preparation, and he said, and I just, not that I didn't know preparation, but it's how he described it and how he said that is such an important thing is always be prepared, and little things like that I'm learning just by doing this podcast. So I think it's dangerous, Bruno, when somebody says I'm done, I know it all, and I'm done learning. And there's a lot of people like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say preparation because in the restaurant industry, all my life, especially for the almost 15 years that I was at Tavolino, I had a sign by like everybody's station it was 5 P's. I call it 5 P's. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. So if you're prepared, no matter if you have 100 guests or 300 guests, you're gonna get through it.
I love that.
Yeah, that's a lot. Even here to this day, I tell them, I say, make sure that you're prepared, because if you're gonna do 50 people or you're gonna do 150, it doesn't matter. You're prepared. Don't over how would I say? It's not over prepared, but don't over waste product doing preparation.
There's an author, I can't remember who it is, but the line of it is it's basically what he says is, and as it relates to preparation, is he said begin with the end in mind. So let's think about what we're doing now, but really, and to your case, 150 people, 100, whatever that is, how does that look? What does the end look like when it's rush hour and doing that? So you begin there, and then you prepare, accordingly. So Dr. Stephen Covey, that's who it is. Dr. Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. I can't wait to hear about this now. So tell me, it's an Italian restaurant, Livello.
It's an Italian restaurant with modern twists and fusion infused. Obviously you still can come in and be like, oh, I want a plate of chicken parmesan, Italian American, I'm going to make it for you. But I kind of do like my own spin of kind of like what I think that my food resembles to this town. I've been working in this town for 15 years. So kind of like have a name and people know the style of cooking that I have. So it's kind of like as an Italian, but with a little twist. I have obviously South American influence because I was born in Brazil. So you bring that little bit of Brazilian into it. I know how to cook various dishes from a lot of different places in the world, from Southeast Asia to South America to Mediterranean and all that. So we do a little fusion of everything. I like to call it an Italian fusion. That's exactly what it is.
What is the popular food in Brazil?
Popular food in Brazil. Look, so Brazil is obviously a very large country, just like American is, and it's divided by culture, right? It's like the north of Brazil has a lot of influence from Portuguese. And then you go a little south of the north, like in between, like let's see, if you do it the same way, like you start on the East Coast, right? Maine, there's a lot of European influence, right?
Yeah.
A lot of European influence, and then you go a little bit more south, you got New York, so now you got the Italians, you got the Irish, and then you go a little bit more south towards Virginia, then you got the coast, you got the crab, you got all that stuff in Maryland and all that, and then you go a little bit more south, and you got the Carolinas. So now you got your soul food, country. And then you go down south to where we are, you got the fish, and you got a fusion of Spanish, Jamaican, Caribbean. It's kind of like Brazil is. You go to the north, Portuguese, you go a little bit more south, now you got African influence because Brazil was like the biggest colonization of slaves in the world at one time. A lot of slaves went to Brazil, or the state of Bahia, which has, I don't remember the number, but it was millions of them arriving. Jeez. Yeah, so we have a lot of African influence on a culinary, in Brazil. And then on the south of Brazil, that's where all the Italians left, World War, and Jewish people left, and they all went to the south of Brazil. So you got a lot of German, Italian, what else? Polish. You got people from all over the world. So it's kind of like a melting pot of flavors.
That's great.
So
which is fusion. There's
yeah,
a perfect.
it's a fusion. Yeah. So if you go to Brazil, to like Rio de Janeiro, for instance, you go to you find an Italian restaurant, you find a sushi restaurant, you find a Brazilian restaurant, you find an African restaurant.
Wow.
Yeah, you find those things.
That. Huh.
Mediterranean restaurant. You know, Brazil is the second biggest population of Japanese people outside of Japan. So put it that way. You know,
I love it. So tell me now. I'm going to role play with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unfortunately going to prison for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I got a long sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaving tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
My last meal, Livello. What am I ordering?
Ooh. Now, all depends. Depends on what are you in the mood for first.
I like chicken.
Okay. I'm going to make you chicken cutlet a la vodka. What I call it Brooklyn-style chicken cutlet. Everybody's talking about this, you know, chicken with vodka sauce and this and that. I do mine a little bit different. I do a little bit of cognac in my sauce. Yeah, so it makes it a little sweeter. I add some crispy prosciutto and then melted burrata cheese.
So the prosciutto's crispy,
like,
and
fried.
then you put it in.
I put it on top of it. So now
how do you know to do that? Do you just you experiment?
Trial and error. Yeah, you know what I mean. You try and error. You know,
you're an artist, like an artist.
It's like you know, I thought about it. It's like if you put the prosciutto on it, right, from the beginning. Now the prosciutto cooks on top of the chicken, releases the salt and makes it salty. If you fry it, that salt goes away a little bit, right? And then now you almost got like prosciutto bits, because you got crispy prosciutto. So chicken cutlet, nice and thin, a little a cognac pink sauce on it, or vodka sauce, whatever you want to call it, burrata cheese, and then crispy prosciutto. Then you bake in the oven for 3 or 4 minutes. And then when it comes out, put on a plate, little basil oil, fresh basil leaves. And then on the side of it, homemade tortellini with buffalo mozzarella and cacio e pepe.
Oh,
yeah.
Gosh.
Speaking
very of the homemade mozzarella, is that something
we do it as a special. We do homemade mozzarella. We do homemade pastas. We make pasta in house. So we usually have like 3 or 4 cuts of pasta. And then, for example, like I got tortellinis that I just told you, buffalo mozzarella tortellinis. I got beef cheek ravioli. So we always try to do something different. My vision behind this restaurant was to create something that this town does not have. For example, like our menu changes every month. You never have the same menu.
Monthly, it changes?
Monthly, it changes every month. We never have the same menu. So today you're going to come here and have meatballs with a little ricotta and a little Italian salad. And then next month you might walk in and you have lobster manchego empanadas. But for me as a chef, you have to do that in order to educate not only your customers, but also for my staff to be excited. Because, you know, I worked at a restaurant that had a fixed menu for many, many years.
Mm-hmm. Most do,
right? And that's because it keeps everything consistent.
Yeah.
We find consistent in those things because we want to educate people how to eat different food, you know, or have a different twist on the food that we're making. Like my staff gets a menu that we're going to release next month, the prior month, so they can study. This is what we're going to serve. And we talk about it and we make dishes and we're like, okay, this is going to be on the next menu. Try it out. And they eat it. And like, wow, that's really good. So they already learn from months ahead before the menu is released.
And how's business been?
It's been good. It's been great, actually. You know, obviously with the support of this community, you know, I like I said, and before I've been working in Coral Springs for many, many years. And it was one of the scariest things for me in the beginning. I thought, like, you know what? We're going to open a restaurant. It's kind of like jumping off the cliff. We don't know. And obviously there's a lot of support from the community. Like, oh, you're going to do great. Don't worry about it. And then when we opened, you know, I opened December 9th last year.
Is that a good time? Is that a busy season?
Well, it's a busy season. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because it's the winter.
But this is how crazy it was. December 9th, I opened for dinner. I unlocked the door and I turned the open sign on. I didn't say anything to anybody. This is 3:00 in the afternoon. I did one post. My wife actually did. We're open. 7:00, we were full.
You didn't market at all?
Not at all. Nothing. I have not advertised once in this place.
That's so good.
And we're sold out to mid-May. To after Mother's Day.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, people just keep calling. I can make a reservation. Say, there's a reason why you can make a reservation, because we don't have room. If you want to come to eat on a Friday, Saturday night, you have to come in either at 5 o'clock and be out by 7, or you come in at 9 and you can stay till we close.
The demand is high. I love that.
The demand is high. Also, because when we go in there, you're gonna see it. We have 13 tables. It's a small, cozy restaurant.
Mm-hmm. It's a family feel.
It's a family feel.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want to eat around the same time, 6:30 to 7:30. Yeah. So if you leave reservations open, and then now you got booked of 15, 16 reservations, you gotta tick off a lot of people. Oh, I made a reservation. You don't have a table for me. So that's kind of like the feel from the beginning that I wanted, is to be booked. Not have a restaurant that has 50 tables and have 25 empty tables, or have a restaurant that has 25 tables and be full
all the time.
Yeah,
that's the demand.
That's the model.
Exactly.
You need to have that.
And then expansion, that could happen. It just happened with Pasta and I think had that big expansion.
That's all within time. You know what I mean? If the demand is,
and that happened for many years. Pasta and was that running that tiny spot.
What and they were booked just like
always,
just like I am. They were booked. The food is delicious. They had good service. It's everything for me. Everything happens for a reason, right? You start small. And then, if the demand in 2 years or 3 years, whatever it is, still the same way, then, I don't want to be huge. I just want to, 98% of the time you come here, I'm cooking. I'm behind the line. You see me cooking. I don't want people to lose that special touch, because it's special. Not only you got the guy that owns the restaurant, now he's cooking for you, and then after you eat, he comes say hello to you, make sure your food is good. That's a personal touch.
It is. And you don't get that at most places.
No, you don't.
And talk about special. What I loved was that pizza.
Yeah.
That's next level.
That's next level. That's kind of brings up to the name of the restaurant. The name of the restaurant is Livello. You know what Livello means in Italian? Livello means level. Okay? So this is Livello 1, which is my level 1. So Livello 1, my level 1 restaurant. So it's my number 1. So a lot of the things in our menu is named next level. It's like, next level this or next level that, because it's, we want to take to a next level. For instance, like the pizza that we talked about, you're talking about the one with the Wagyu steak on it, right?
I'm talking about all of them. I've had a few. Yes. They're unbelievable. So it's like that. It's something you've never had.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, everybody makes the same things, right? You walk into a restaurant that sells pizza, they have the same thing. Meat lovers, veggie, this and that. You gotta think outside the box a little bit and do things that people be like, I'll never thought of eating this together. Mm-hmm. But some way, somehow it makes sense on this. Like we have a Wagyu skirt steak pizza that has black truffle on it, wild mushrooms, caramelized onions, and then smoked Gouda and provolone cheese. So it's like you never think of
those are
all those combinations.
Now the pizzas don't change. Those are
they change every 3 months. I just changed them 2 weeks ago.
Do you keep, if there's one that everybody loves?
Yeah, you keep the most popular ones.
That steak.
Mm-hmm. That steak one. We have one that has fig and gorgonzola on it.
A white one?
It's a white pie.
Uh-huh.
So we do mozzarella, gorgonzola, and then we make this homemade fig compote, and then you put it on it, and then at the end, little truffle honey.
And what time do you open up?
We open at 11 a.m. and then we close at 3.
And open back up at 6?
At 5 o'clock to about 10 o'clock at night.
Well, speaking of that, it's 5 now, and I want to go see inside.
Let's go.
Let's do it, man. Yeah. That was great, man. Yeah. Great having you in the Sprinter.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a pleasure,
Let's
man.
go see it.
Pretty cool setup.